This chapter is about factoring, which you guys have done this before. Well, you've done factoring before, you have never done polynomial factoring before. So that's the new thing. Let's start with factoring. So what are the factors of 20? Hey guys. Okay, 5 and 4. What else?
2 and 2.
1 and 20. 2 and 10, right? Okay, factors are things that multiply into something else, into the product. Okay, we're not really doing much of that. That's kind of a part of it, but that's not really. This is like middle school factoring.
So is this going to be easy?
No, this chapter is not easy. If you're good at multiplying and dividing and adding and subtracting, it makes this chapter very manageable. But if you kind of struggle with those two things, it makes it hard. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. These are called factors, things that multiply into something else. This whole chapter is called factoring polynomials. I think that's what they call it. Okay, and then this is not factoring, but I want to look at it for a second. All right. If I were to simplify this, what would I do? Distribute. Okay, so there's a little bit of this on that test, right? 2x times 3x, 6x squared. 2x times minus 5. Okay, that's called the distributive property. So that's when you multiply it together. So what we're doing, though, this chapter is breaking it apart into its factors, like what multiplies into this, So what we're learning today, I call take stuff out. The book, I think, calls it factoring out the common monomial. Okay, I just call it take stuff out. So what we're going to do is say, what can I divide both of these terms by? What goes into 6 and 10? 2. And you try to think of the biggest thing that can go into both of them. But what goes in 6 and 10 is 2. What goes into x squared and x? X. They both have at least an x. So we're going to take out a 2x. Okay, in parentheses, we're going to put what's left after we take it out. Now, when I say we're taking it out, I mean we're dividing it out. We're dividing it out. So what is 6x squared divided by 2x? 3. X squared divided by x is x. Minus what's 10x divided by 2x? 5. Okay, this is called factoring because this factor times this factor equals this product. This is only one way of factoring, but this is what we're doing today. Does that kind of make sense? Take stuff out. So notice I just made it go back to where we started from. Whoops. Like this was what we started. So in the past, like last chapter, we just simplified. And now we're kind of doing the opposite. We're breaking it apart because certain kinds of problems, you have to do this to solve certain kinds of problems. I was going to say something, but I forgot what it was. Oh, I know. Okay. What if this had been a 2x? If I take a 2x out of that, what's going to be left? 1. Because we're dividing. 2x divided by 2x is 1. It's not nothing. Okay, when we're taking it out, we're dividing it out. So 2x divided by 2x is 1. All right. Let's jump in. To be honest with you guys, Thursday's assignment probably going to be like the hardest we've done this year. Oh. Today, it's on the board there. 1 to 26.
That doesn't sound fun.
You might like the challenge. Okay, so number one, we're just starting with plain numbers, plain factoring. It's we're supposed to find the greatest common factor. So what's the biggest thing that can go into both of these? there is kind of a trick, but I don't think we're gonna learn it because it's a lot of extra work. So let's just make a list. What can go into 45? 1 and 45. You guys remember the threes trick?
If it adds up to something.
If 4 plus 5 is 9, does 3 go into 9? Yes, so 3 will go into 45. I heard a couple of you say this. 3 and 15. What else from our times tables?
5 and 9.
5 and 9. Anything else? No, I think that's it. Okay, 75 is 1 and 75. 2 doesn't go into it because it's odd. Does 3 go into it?
Yes.
3 quarters equals 75 cents, right? So it's 3 times 25. 4 doesn't. 4 only goes into evens. Only go into evens. I don't know if you guys knew that. 5 definitely goes into it.
5 and 15.
6 doesn't. 7, no. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay. So what's the biggest thing they have in common?
15.
So 15 is the greatest common factor. All right. By the way, what if I had something like 10 and 7? This is not number 3, by the way. Okay. What if I had 10 and 7? What's their greatest common factor?
1.
Yeah, it's 1. The book calls that relatively prime. Okay, that means, do you guys know what, we're not really talking about primes today, but do you guys remember what a prime number is?
Cannot be divided.
Prime number is like 7 because the only thing that goes into it is 1 times 7. Prime numbers have 2 factors. 1 times itself. So 10 is not prime, but together they're relatively prime because the only thing that goes into both is 1. Okay, so one of the evens is relatively prime. Okay. Number 3, 24x and 32xy. Okay, so for the number part, we're going to kind of do what we did last time. What goes into 24 and 32? So 1 and 20, a lot of stuff goes into 24. Kind of suspect that's why they made that many hours in the day. 32 has a few. All right, so what's the greatest common factor for 24 and 32? 8. Some of you might have known that already. If they're 8 apart, the biggest common factor that could be is 8. Because it has the 8s go up by 8. Anyways, so 8's part of the answer. How about this x and y? So we need something, the greatest common factor is something that can multiply into both of them, right? Yeah, it's going to be x. Okay, here's my trick. You got to kind of keep this in mind. To find the greatest common factor, you want to use the least of each variable. To find the greatest common factor, you want to use the least of each variable. So greatest, least. So what's the least of my x's? 1x. What's the least of my y's? No y's. So the least is no y, so I'm not going to use a y. Okay, because if I put a y, could I multiply this to turn into that? No. So it's not a factor. This is not a factor of 24x, so I can't use a y. So the least of my x's is 1x. The least of my y's is no y's. So that is it. So, let me back up for a second. What could I multiply 8x by to turn it into 24x?
3.
3. What could I multiply 8x by to turn it into 32xy? 4y. Okay, so this is a common factor. This does multiply into both of those. Anyways, okay. Let's keep rolling. Number 5. Lots of letters. x2, y3, x3, y2. Okay. Actually, this one's kind of easy. If you remember what I just said. What did I say about the variables? Use the least. So how many x's am I going to use? How many y's am I going to use? Okay, y. No, I'm not using 1. I'm using x squared and y squared. That's the least of each. Because this times y would equal that, and this times x would equal that. So it does go into both of them. Number 7. Okay, 7 is like I did at the beginning. So, there are 3 main ways of factoring. Today we're learning way number 1, which I said earlier was, I called it, take stuff out. What did they call it? Something about factoring common monomials. Anyways, what could I divide out of both of these terms? 3. They're both divisible by 3. So what I'm going to do is put a 3 on the front of a parentheses. And then in the parentheses, I'm going to put what's left if I divide both of those by 3. It's the opposite of distribute. We're undistributing. So what's 3x divided by 3? X. Plus what's 3y divided by 3? Y. It's kind of like the last chapter. We had problems kind of like this. Maybe a little bit messier, but you just divide both of those by 3. Okay, so this is the answer. Sometimes the number that people take out, they just throw away, and that would be wrong. If we multiply this back together, it should go back to this. They are equal values. Number 9, 8x minus 32y. All right. I don't know if they did any letters on this one.
There were 8.
Not until the B section. I probably should have done more B's. Okay, yeah, 8 goes into both of these. So I'm going to put an 8 outside here. What's left if I divide by 8? It'd be x minus 32 divided by 8. A squared minus, oh, here's a letter. Okay, what can I divide out of both of those terms? A. Okay, what is a squared divided by a? A. Minus what's a divided by a? A divided by a is 1. It's like 5 divided by 5. Anything divided by itself is 1. Okay, 13. X squared y plus WZ. Okay, what can I divide out of both of those terms? Nothing is correct. So guess what I'm going to put? Prime. Does not factor. Let me see how many evens there are that are prime. 1. Just 1. I think there's 1 even, 1 odd. In 1 through 6, there's 1 relatively prime. It's a little bit different. Okay. So let's start with the numbers. What number can go into all three of these terms? 7. What letter, what variable can go into all three of these?
X, nothing.
Nothing. Okay. If this one had an X in it, we could have taken an X, or if this one had a Y, we could take a Y. But it's got to go into all three, so none of the variables are going to come out. I think they don't really do that till like the B section, like put the variables that can come out. Okay, so 7 comes out. If I divide this term by 7, I get squared 49 divided by 7. And then plus 28y squared divided by 7 is 4y squared.
How was your weekend? What's your weekend?
Lovely. Seventeen, 6a squared plus 48a minus 24. All right. What can I do on this one? 6. 6 comes out. How about A's? No, because the last term doesn't have any. So I'm going to take a 6 out.
Are there going to be any like decimals?
No, we don't really factor with decimals. Okay, 48a divided by 6 is 6a. 24 divided by 6.
I thought 48 divided by 6 was 8.
Oops. Okay, 19. Yep. 1. 19, 6a squared. Okay, we're in the B section. That means basically we're going to have to start taking letters out. 8 does have a letter to take out. Okay, 6a squared b plus 3ab squared. All right, what comes out of both of those?
3.
3? Yeah, they both have at least an A. Remember, got to use like the least of each. And they both have at least a B. So we can take a 3AB. What's left on the first term if we divide it by 3AB?
3A.
6 divided by 3 is 2. A squared divided by A. B divided by B is gone. Plus this divided by 3AB.
B.
Yeah, 3a divided by 3a goes away. B squared divided by B is B. (2191) a cubed B squared. Plus 13a squared B. All right. Well, does anything go into 91 and 13?
No.
13.
Okay, what's the only thing that goes into 13?
1 and 13.
1 and 13. Now, does taking a 1 out do anything? If I divide these by 1, that's like doing nothing, right? So you don't really count the 1. But the only thing that goes into 13 is 13. So I would check, does 13 go into 91? 91 divided by 13 turns out to be 7. So yeah, 13 does come out. And how many A's can I take out? 2. How many B's? 1. So 91 divided by 13, and we just mentioned it, is 7. A cubed divided by a squared. A, remember when you divide, you just subtract the exponents. B squared divided by b. How about this one? 13a squared b divided by 13a squared b. 1. All this kind of canceled out. (14x squared y minus 15z). All right. What goes into 14 and 15? Nothing besides 1. They're relatively prime. How about the letters? What letters go into both of those? Nothing. So this one is another prime. If there's 2 odd primes.
What's 20 then?
On 24, that one looks a little bit weird. What could we take out on 24? 2 and pi. Pi is actually a constant. It's not a variable, but either way, it doesn't really matter. You can take a 2 pi out of both of those. So when you take the 2 pi out, there should still be a negative left in the first term. You could take a negative 2 pi out, but let's not. Let's just take a 2 pi out. Okay, 25 is 12 plus minus 16xy squared. Okay, what can go into 12 and 16? 4. Now, somebody might say 2, which is technically correct, but you gotta take the biggest number, the greatest common factor. You gotta take the biggest one you can. I'd probably give you half credit for taking the 2 out, maybe. And then, how many x's can we take out? 1. Because they both have 1. If I try taking 2 x's out, it's not gonna work over here. Anyway, you take the least of each kind. How many y's can I take out? None, because this one doesn't have any. So all I can take out is 4x. If you try to take a y out when you go here, there will be nothing to divide it by and it won't work. Anyway, 12x cubed divided by 4x, 3x squared, minus 16 divided by 4 is 4. X divided by x cancels out. We still have that y squared there.
Finish on this 20.